Hello, so this is going to be a video on some of my camo stuff I've got around everywhere. I'm mostly going to be only including proper military camos in this, but I will include a couple of ones that aren't military ones that are just sort of interesting. So what I've got on, just before I start with all the others, is the Serbian surplus. I think it's called either M89 or M93 oak leaf camo. And I finally managed to find some that's not faded, so let me just pan the camera down slightly so you can see it. But I got this from WS Army Surplus, I believe it's called, in Ensham, which is in the Oxford sort of area, because I finally managed to find, one that wasn't faded. Because if you look at all these, and I've done previous videos on these where I dyed a faded one of these, I don't know if the lighting in here makes it obvious, but this isn't actually faded. The browns are browns, the greens are greens, and you can actually see what all the colours are meant to be. So that's great. I'd recommend you kind of look in there because they've got quite a lot of surplus in there. I'm certainly going to be going back soon at some point and actually buying a load more camo stuff from them, because they've got quite a lot of camos in there. And the nice thing about surplus stores, the physical ones, is that you can actually check and see how faded the camo is and if there's actually any rips in it and stuff like that before ordering online. This video is going to be in no particular order. If you're interested in some of the camo patterns, I've probably done camo tests with them before. Okay, so I'm not going to remember all the names of these. This is a Czech camo pattern from the Cold War. Basically, I think it's called Czech raindrop or needle pattern. This is the really cool one that shows up under infrared light to have a second pattern on it. Watch the videos I've done on this particular pattern if you're interested in that. Basically, the Czechoslovakian version of raindrop camo. The IR on this thing is incredibly effective, one of the best IR camouflages ever made, even including the modern ones. But unfortunately, the colours aren't the best on this. I don't know if this one's faded, but most of it I've seen has looked quite grey. So the problem is, it's one of those camos that if you ever take out into the field and test it, you'll find it kind of is obvious because it looks greyer than everything else around it. So there's that one. Not a bad camo though at all, especially the IR. Very nice winter coat as well. So Flecktarn, one of my favourite camo patterns ever. I've got loads of Flecktarn stuff. This is the more modernish Flecktarn, which is slightly darker colours I don't like as much. I prefer the older Flecktarn stuff, which is more of, like the reddy and green colour Flecktarn. But all Flecktarn I sort of like anyway, because it's well made gear. So Flecktarn is West German or modern German stuff. What else have I got down here? I can't get it easily, so I'll stop the camera to get at that, but I have some, my old M65 jacket. Let me just get that out. So, an M65 jacket, I've spoken about M65 jackets a lot, I really like them. This is in US Woodland, very famous. It might be called M81 Woodland, I think their actual name for it, but everybody just knows it as US Woodland. Like British DPM, it's probably one of the best woodland patterns ever made. In my hand, I've also got some trousers in this. This is a Mark 6 helmet cover, but in British Desert, the two-colour Desert DPM. Quite an effective desert pattern. It's basically a dark sort of brown colour and a light brown, or like a beige kind of colour that make up the desert ones. Pretty effective, but yeah, US Woodland is a really nice, camo print. If you want effective woodland camouflage, I'd say either go for US Woodland or British Woodland. This Serbian one I've got on, if you can get it in a non-faded variant, is also very good. But for woodland camos, you primarily just want something that's in shades of brown and green. That's kind of what works best for woodland. What else have I got then? What we've got here is one of these extreme cold weather suits. It's the one Beastoree kindly sent me. I'll try and remember to put a link down below to his eBay page. But this is the Ukrainian ones, and it's kind of like in a multi-cam sort of coloured thing. As far as I'm aware, this is Ukrainian anyway, but it's actually, hopefully as winter I'll get a chance to test it out properly. But in terms of camo pattern, it's just kind of like a digital version of a multi-cam type thing. Mostly browns and greens, although they're quite muted browns and greens. But again, it's probably intended for a snowy winter sort of climate, which it would probably work quite well in. So, classic British 95 DPM Woodland on here. These are just the trousers. I've got trousers and top for Woodland 95. As said, this is, with the American one, probably the best woodland camo pattern ever made. Just, combinations of brown, green, and black, really. The only issue I have with British Soldier 95 stuff and like the modern British MTP stuff is not the camo patterns itself, but the trousers tend to be a little thin, so they can rip easily. I kind of prefer, it means they're very nice in warm weather, but I kind of prefer the sort of fleck tarn type stuff, which is actually cut a bit thicker, so it stands up a bit more in field use conditions. But yeah, British Woodland again is an excellent woodland camo pattern. You know, works really well for that sort of stuff. East German Strickdarn, or Raindrop Camo, I think it literally means stripe pattern in German. This is one of my favourite camo patterns ever, although it's not that effective by modern standards. But what's really nice about this camo is it's made from, the colour it's dyed is like a weird shade of either brown or green. And it's very hard for the eye to pick up the exact colour, which is what makes it work so well. Because basically, you know, it's hard to work out the colour of it, and the eye isn't drawn to the colour, so it doesn't stand out. Stricktarn is one of those camos that seems like a multicam, seems to work decently well everywhere, but never exceptionally. The problem with Stricktarn kind of is that it doesn't have a disruptive pattern on it. Now, it does have the raindrop kind of things, where it's called stripe pattern, but as you get further away you can't see those. In an ideal world, East Germany, they could have still kept the lines on it, but they would have kind of had a splodge, like a two-colour splodge pattern. I think would have worked better. Have this colour as definitely one of the colours, maybe the other brown, you know, and splodges on it. That would have worked fantastically. But as is, it does work very well for what it is, but obviously at a distance you kind of just turn into a brown shape rather than actually, you know, having a disruptive effect of various patterns on it. I couldn't resist including these bright red urban sort of novelty camo trousers. Really like these. They're obviously bright and garish. Wouldn't work very well as camouflage, but interesting enough for what they are. So there's a load of spin-offs of these. You can get these in like a bright fluorescent orange colour as well, and a yellow. The primary pattern there is the same as US Woodland, because I think at one point the US trialled these in sort of an urban grey colour, and then they did a couple of spin-offs, and as far as I'm aware this is like a far too bright over-the-top spin-off one to be a real one. But they did test things, you know, in red, shades of red and other colours just to see how well they worked, but they weren't mass-produced proper camos. But these at one point became sort of, you know, a popular sort of urban culture thing, I guess. But I bought them because I wanted some bright garish trousers that, you know, looked over the top. Right, a few different ones to show you here. This is the camo pattern on the front that nobody's exactly sure what it is. The label's missing on it. Now, I was able to track down some photos of these where the labels were still on them, and it's a Burmese company that made it called Sunmfa, or Sunmfa, and these are also used by quite a few African countries. So what I've come to the conclusion of, rightly or wrongly, and there's no good evidence either way, so, you know, pointless arguing with me over this, is that the Burmese company probably made them, and then they were exported to various African countries who used them and maybe then copied them and made them without a license or whatever, or maybe they did use a license. Because lots of people have told me that like one of the South African republics, I forget the name of, used it briefly. When I bought this, somebody thought it was either Zimbabwean or Rhodesian, but the point is that there's definitely, you can find pictures of a Burmese company's name on the collars of some of these. So that would make me think that Burma or Myanmar at one point made these and then sold them as exports, you know, and then various stuff happened after that. Right, next we've got British MTP, so this is what in British service replaced 95 DPM. So this is like a multi-cam thing. I've tested these quite a few times in camo tests and they tend to work very well. Lots of people don't seem to think this would work well in a British environment at all, but in certain conditions it works fine, absolutely fantastically. Obviously, yes, in like the spring or summer, if it's not too dry, in green woodland it would look out of place, but in lots and lots of conditions it works fine. Again, a bit like the East German Stricktarn, it works decently everywhere, but not, I don't think, exceptionally anywhere. This is not a bad camo pattern at all, despite a lot of people slagging it off. Okay, then we've got a really interesting one, Swiss Alpenflage, used by Switzerland for quite a long time. Interesting camo pattern. Lots of reds in it, which is why a lot of people don't think it would work. But if you look at the old 70s and 80s training videos of Swiss soldiers wearing them in the Alps, it does blend them in very well. So I'm planning on using this autumn. If all the leaves are all red and orange and everything. I'm planning on doing, because I've got the trousers that match this as well, and luckily it's a not faded set of it. I want to actually do a camo test of this because I think Swiss Alpenflage might work really well. That Yugoslavian summer camo, or sniper camo suits, whatever you want to call it, quite a good pattern. It's very similar to a lot of the Woodland DPM type ones. It's basically green, brown and a sort of yellow colour in a sort of disruptive pattern. Seems quite effective, but I've never had the chance to test it during the summer yet, so at some point I'll have to do it in the spring or summer. But I think it should work fairly well. Belgian jigsaw, these are quite faded. This can be a really garish pattern when it's actually bright. I don't actually think it's a bad pattern at all, because lots of people knock this, but Belgian jigsaw, supposedly when it's not really bright and brand new, works quite well, and I suppose it's just because you've got kind of like reddy browns, greens in it, and sort of tan yellows, so yeah, works well. But I don't think Belgium uses it anymore. What I've also got, and these aren't official military camos, they're actually from Primark, judging by the label, is just some camo sort of shorts they did in there, and these are quite interesting because these are like an arid sort of African style pattern as well. You've got greens in there, browns, and sort of like a tan sort of beige colour, but again, not an official camo, but they actually do seem like they would be fairly effective if you lived in an environment where these would work. They probably don't have any infrared coating or anything like that, but you know, should work well for that. I definitely have some more camo items somewhere or others, and I've probably forgotten some of the military ones I have for this video. I'm definitely not getting all my gas mask satchels out to check if any of those have patterns on, because I know some certainly do. But this would be the majority of my camo stuff anyway. I'm sure as soon as I finish the video I think, oh, I've forgotten something. But there you go, hopefully you found that interesting. As said, I'll probably be going up WS Army Surplus again at some point and buying a load more camo stuff, because they've got a load in, so you know I can actually check for sizes that fit me and colours, and then use them in future camo test videos. But yeah, lots of this stuff is all very interesting.